There is no screen sharing on this video, no Ableton. This is going to be a little bit different. I want to talk about generative music and is it actually okay? You may assume that I think it's okay because that's what a lot of my videos are about, but it is actually not as simple as that. So allow me to share my thoughts on generative music. I'm sure if you're into generative music, I'm sure you've stumbled upon all the both people doubting it or questioning it, whether it does it actually require any skill, and also the contrary, where people justify generative music and automating the music making process. So, for example, sometimes people would just even question electronic music as a whole, full stop, asking like, isn't that just pressing a button? For me, comments like that, I can just completely dismiss. They are really hollow, and I mean, it's not even possible to unpick them, and I don't get affected by them. But sometimes you get comments that makes me think and question. So if you take, for example, modular Melodies, who I regard highly, he's got an amazing YouTube channel, and I've learned loads of stuff from him, and he's also made me buy a few Eurorack modules. Anyway, I remember him talking about one of his generative patches and saying something along the lines that it still requires skill to make generative music, because in the end, you are the one who judges what is good, what ends up on the cutting room floor, and what you're going to keep, because most things will be discarded. I think he's right. That is definitely something that you still are when you're making generative music. But I couldn't help think that, is that what I'm reducing myself to, just being that judge? And that didn't really sit well. And I've just had that at the back of my head for a long time. There are some other examples as well. I don't know about you, but when I go onto YouTube, I get quite a lot of adverts for Unison MIDI chord pack, or most recently, which is a really good example, is something called, I think it's Drum Monkey. And that just fulfills the prejudice of pressing a button. And you see the people in the adverts, I don't know if I think they are real YouTubers. I'm not sure, but I think they are real YouTubers, or they're just made to look like real YouTubers. They get excited, they press a button, and it generates a ready-made beat for you. You pick your genre from a drop-down menu, and then you just keep pressing that button, and it will just spit out more and more versions of, whatever genre you're working on. And like, my first reaction, like, two things. Number one is like, this is not something for me. Number two, I also really question, like, what's the skill here if you just press a button and it just spits out the music for you, or the beat in this case? And also, then thinking about modular Melodies' rationale of, you're still that person who will judge what's good and what's not, and what you're discarding and what you're keeping. That would still apply here, right? Like, you're still the one who presses the button until it sounds nice. It's just something that didn't sort of quite sit right here. All this made me think, is this a dead end, or am I pursuing something that is worthwhile by investigating these generative techniques? And I've been really trying to unpick my own thoughts, and I would like to share them with you. Before I go ahead and present my thoughts, I just want to say that they are thoughts that I'm having at this point in time, and they may change, and possibly through this discussion that I'm having with you, if you want to post some comments below. I'm going to start off with just establishing a few things. It's basically, what shall we define as music? And then I want to talk about skills and where those skills happen. And then I also want to talk a little bit about human nature, and then I will come to the conclusion. So without further ado, let's start with, what is music? For me, I would say the most basic building block is sound and or silence that has been curated by someone. Right? Let's say, at least for this context, that let's just call that music. It'll be easier to go ahead. I also think that music serves a purpose for the listener, whether that is helping them relax or focus or recall memories, evoke emotions, like enhancing the context in a film scene, or trigger associations in one way or another. All right, so now what about skills? If we say that music is some form of curated sounds and or silences, here are some examples: composition, performing with a musical instrument, studio engineering, conducting an orchestra, writing lyrics, sound design, even inventing or fabricating musical instruments. That's not a comprehensive list by any standards, but it's quite clear they're arguably extremely difficult to compare. If you take someone who can perform the lark ascending on a violin on a stage in front of thousands of people, just imagine the journey for that person to get to that point, from knowing nothing about music at all, from listening, eventually picking up the violin and learning how to play it. Compare that to someone who's done an extremely complex patch on a modular synthesizer setup in their studio. Imagine the journey they have been on from knowing nothing to actually understanding the equipment and being able to plug that in. I don't think you can compare those two things. I don't think you can say necessarily clear cut that one is easier than the other. I think it depends on the artist and what is coming easy, what's easy for them. I think it's more important to look at a little bit like, I don't know, supply and demand, I suppose, and what is it that the audience appreciates. And with supply and demand, I don't think it's only about quantity. If there are huge masses that want a particular type of music, and you are really good at performing that, I also think there is still supply and demand if you're doing something extremely niche, but there is a following that really appreciates what you do. And that is more important than talking about, like, does this take skill or not? Because there is skill somewhere. And I suppose that also is the answer to that question, like, where is the skill? There is skill in the process somewhere. But then if we talk about the monkey drum monkey plugin that I mentioned earlier, if you press that button and it generates a beat for you, you pick a genre, and you have reduced yourself to just being that just that judge of if something is good or not. I think we have to talk a little bit about human nature here. If we look back in history, in 19th century England, there was a group of people calling themselves Luddites. They had set out to damage machinery in the textile industry, and it was because they were really afraid of machines replacing humans, and yeah, that obviously people lost their jobs, etc. And that is a fear that has not gone away. It's existed for a long time. It just takes a different shape. I am sure that you can mention a whole bunch of science fiction examples where machines or robots have taken over and made humans redundant, or that there is a risk that makes to make humans redundant. Well, actually, not only in science fiction. Just take this example now by having automated trucks, or lorries as they're called in the UK, rather than having them driven by people. There is a fear that lots of people will lose their jobs. I think there is a similarity here to generative music, like you're just removing the human aspect. But let's look back at history again. Did the textile industry machines result in humans sitting back and the machines had taken over and there was nothing more for humans to do? No, that is actually not what happened. Just think about all the jobs that exists today that the Luddites couldn't even imagine over 100 years ago. The thing is that I think it's in human nature, or for many anyway, that you are just going to redirect your effort elsewhere where the biggest need is. So for example, if you don't need to do something, if that's taken care of, you can redirect your effort and attention where it's most needed. Sorry, I'm just saying the same thing twice, but I think it's an important thing. So if we then look at the drum monkey thing, I still don't think it is a product for me, because I don't think it caters for the type of music that I like to listen to. And also it removes an aspect of the music making process that I really enjoy interrogating and testing and pushing in a way that drum monkey doesn't do. And ultimately, the purpose for me of making music is because I enjoy it. But if drum monkey, pressing the drum monkey button allows someone to redirect their attention and effort elsewhere to enhance their music, if they just don't need to worry about those beats, maybe that's fine. Maybe that is okay. If they are put in as much effort, but just elsewhere, they can just like take their music to the next level. So I just want to come to the conclusion here. I think first about skills. I don't think you can compare skills and say that something is skillful and something isn't. It's just more about appreciation, I think. And if there is a, like at the very least, you need to appreciate it yourself. There's two aspects to this. I am a fan if you are making generative music or using tools that automate part of the process, if that allows you to put all your effort into some other aspect of your process, and that work actually makes a positive difference to the outcome, to the music that you're making. I am not a fan of automation and generative music if you're doing it because you cannot be bothered to make the effort. I also do think this is going to come out in the wash in the end. There will always be people who will make the effort even if you wouldn't be that person. If you are keen on just sitting back, pressing the drum monkey button and calling it done, someone else is going to press the drum monkey button but then go the extra mile elsewhere in their process. And arguably, they're going to be making something that is probably a bit more unique and probably a bit more rare. But in the end, if you are making something that people appreciate and you feel proud of, you're onto something good. Thank you very much for listening. Please share your thoughts in the comments. And I hope to see you soon again. Thank you. Bye.